Is being successful in business down to luck? Is it a sweet science? Is it about being in the right business at the right time? Or hard work and dedication? Well, if you're like me, a business owner that's always looking at improving and learning from the best, this podcast will be sharing real stories from real business journeys. Welcome to RealTalk, your podcast dedicated to interviewing successful entrepreneurs. Kieron, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for coming in. And I know how busy you are, and two things: sorry for letting you down, and sorry for moving it. And I'm really appreciative of you coming in.
No problem at all.
So for everybody just listening in, just give people an understanding of who you are, what business you run, and kind of the community that company serves.
Yeah, I'm Kieron Honeyman. I'm director of KH Plant Training, which is an organisation put together around about 7-8 years ago with a view to deliver construction plant, mobile plant training, along with health and safety training, health and safety consultancy. We deliver MVQs, and we've a 5-acre training academy up in Doncaster now, which has been part of the journey over the few years that we go. And obviously we deliver training to not only Yorkshire region, we do deliver nationwide, but predominantly it is South Yorkshire region.
Yeah.
But some of the companies that we've started working with now that have got a national and sometimes international footprint has obviously allowed for a bit of growth. And again, that bigger nationwide type of delivery as well as just concentrating on the region.
So why start a business then? Tell us a little bit about before that.
Well, when I come out of military in 2007, my chosen career path was construction, and it went straight into mobile plant training. The resettlement funding that were provided from the military lend itself financially towards going into a career where I knew there were potentially going to be a foothold straight into employment. And a company that I was quite close to at the time, they did all mobile plant earthworks, demolition works, and friends in that company seemed to decide that, there'd be a potential there for future employment. So I utilised the money based on where my next progression steps were going to be once I come out of military.
Yeah.
So did those courses as I was leaving the military, left the military in 2007. And in the military, I was heavily involved in instruction. I used to teach small arms weapons, rifles, machine guns, but we were also an armoured infantry battalion, so I used to teach on all the turret and gun systems for the 30mm rod and cannon, 7.62 capsule mounted machine gun and multi-barrel smoke grenade dischargers. I used to teach on battle group thermal imagery systems as well as tactics and things like that.
How long were you in the army for?
10 years.
Right, okay.
So I used to do heavily involved in instruction, and then when I come out, obviously going into construction and having built my way up into managerial positions in construction industry, eventually it just seemed to be the natural progression to take a step back into what my main skill set was, which was passing on my experience and my knowledge to others. And an opportunity, having gathered that, lifetime, I'll call it Civvy Street construction related experience, once I'd got that under my belt, it then became, the next step for me to go, to take that information, take that knowledge, take that experience and pass it on to people that'll benefit from it. And obviously it's been a long-winded journey, and it's continuing to go, and no doubt it'll continue to go as we progress.
You left the military in
2007.
2007, and you went straight into construction.
You
received some training, did you? And then went.
Well, what the military do, once you've served a certain amount of time, the military provide a certain amount of funding for you to do what's called resettlement training.
Yeah.
And that is basically them saying, thanks for your service. We want to help you progress into your civic life. And here's the sort of training. You get to pick from there's lots of different open opportunities for you to select from. So obviously somebody with a bit of sense is going to pick something that they've got a bit of interest in, a bit of passion in, and potentially employment opportunities. So you take that amount of training, it's usually over a certain amount of weeks. I think I got 5 weeks and so many £1,000 to spend on the training that obviously then led on to my career to come into construction industry. So literally from day dot of finishing and leaving the army, my first days in employment was straight into what I'd actually done the resettlement training in, which were operating heavy construction plant.
So how did you go from leaving the military, getting a couple of accreditations, being on a construction site in heavy machinery, to starting KH plant training?
Well, what I did, because when I did my resettlement training, I did multiple items of mobile plant, and what you generally find in industry is that if you've got multiple categories of plant on a qualification card, becoming actually relatively experienced on each of those items, if you work for one company, can be quite difficult. Because, for instance, if you went into muck shifting as a 360 operator. The other categories like telescopic handler and roller and other things that I could drive, I'd probably never have got on.
Yeah.
So a friend of mine worked for Linear Recruitment, which is a major office in Sheffield, and he was a lead recruitment consultant there. And I decided to go and work with him, which meant that I'd get the opportunity to pick and choose my jobs, getting on all various different sites, meeting people from all different companies and different elements of industry. But also the key thing for me was getting experience on each of those items of plant over a period of time. Because you can't buy experience. The training you can pay for, but experience comes simply with bum on seat time. So I went and did that for a couple of years, and then I started focusing on other companies and started to go into work to companies and deepen my experience on individual items of plant. And over a period of time, I started settling into a couple of companies, and because of my past in the military and because of some of the things that I was able to do outside of operating plant, I started to generally progress through into supervisory and then eventually managerial positions. Yeah. But after a period of time, once I'd got to that level, the natural progression for me, as I said earlier, was to get back into training. And I just happened to be in a particular and prime location where at that time there was a training company in Sheffield at Manor called Hargreaves Training. Yeah. They were a Yorkshire company that had got a national footprint, so they got their head office were Leeds, they got a Manchester depot and a Sheffield depot and a Hull depot, but the Leeds and Sheffield depots were the main depots. And a friend of mine that was in the army with me, which was a sergeant in the motor platoon, he was actually the regional manager for Yorkshire, and he was based out of the Sheffield office, and he was heavily recruiting ex-military, predominantly from our own regiment, to come in as MVQ assessors and as instructors. Now, when I found that out, I contacted him and I asked to go for an interview as an MVQ assessor, because I was already a qualified MVQ assessor from the military. Yeah. And it was a bit of a weird scenario, because I went for the interview, bearing in mind this guy at that time, he was a senior rank to me, and I was a bit of a, for want of a better phrase, a rebel in military. I was a rugby player heavily, and I was a bit of a bloody rebel. I couldn't do as I was told. But anyway, I went for the interview, and at the same time at the interview, there were two other senior ranks, both from our regiment, that went for the interview, both of which were not actually qualified for the job. I was the only qualified person, but the role of an MVQ assessor is such that you don't have to physically be qualified to deliver the job. You have to be learning the job. So they could be registered for the qualification, because it's on the job qualification learning. You've got to be doing it to actually get qualified. And because of ex-military politics and such, and they were his friends from military because they were senior ranks, they both got the job and I didn't, as the only qualified person. But I spoke to him again the next day, because there was other roles available, self-employed, to do forklift instructors and RTITB, 10-day instructors qualification, and then they were instantly setting you on as a self-employed forklift instructor. So I spoke to the guy and said, look, fair enough, that's not happened. What about this? He offered me the opportunity, and I used some of my enhanced learning credits to do the FLT instructors qualification. Did that. Finished it on Friday, whatever it was, started the freelance job on the Monday and continued to work. Now, as it happened, that company, after about 6 months, got some major government funding, about £3.5 million, through Sheffield-based company Working Links, to deliver plant training. Well, they'd only got me that had got plant qualifications and got all that experience. So that company then asked me to come on the books, promoted me to plant training manager, give me a decent salary above the others that had got the job in front of me, and basically asked me to set up 2 plant training centres, which I did. And eventually, as that company progressed and the funding, as you know, on peaks and troughs, after about a year of that, it sort of dried out. And the plant side of life, once that pot of money had gone, went, and they asked me to go into a role which were more quality assurance and office based. Right. And though I was qualified and I could do the job, and I didn't mind doing it 10% of the time, I couldn't do it 100% of the time. So I moved on to another plant training company in Wakefield, Birkwood Plant Training, where I did multiple roles, from assessing to teaching to internal quality assurance, which gave me a good feel for everything. And it was whilst I was there that I did my NEBOSH General, then my NEBOSH Construction Certificate, in order to start teaching health and safety. But I'm the type of person that I will not teach something unless I myself have got actual fully and plenty of lifetime experience in that role. So I decided to leave that company and go and work for a company in Rotherham called Ron Hull Demolition, and I worked predominantly on their health and safety team as the safety advisor, but also at Ron Hull's as a group of companies around 180 employees. So I looked after the whole of the group in terms of training because of my training background and all the things, the items of plant and health and safety that I could train on. I managed all of that group's training. But what I also decided to do at the same time was carry on as a self-employed trainer. So KH Plant Training at that time sort of became born as a sole trading company at that time. So in around about 2014 is when I started doing training for myself for my own company, and the brand became born. And after probably 2 years doing that and realising that I was making just as much money at weekends and in early hours at morning or on night shifts for my own sole trading company, I was making and doubling my salary, and I thought, well, I'm continually doing these things and I'm making other people plenty of money, making myself a reasonable and as a well-off living, but I'm never going to actually get where I want to be and where I know I can be if I don't take the risk and step out of my comfort zone. So in 2015, an opportunity presented itself to me whilst working with some of the companies that I'd started to get involved with as a freelancer, where an opportunity got, I'll say sold to me, incorrectly sold for want of a better phrase, but the opportunity got sold to me that, is with everything that you can deliver and the depth of experience and knowledge and categories that you've got under your belt, this company offered me as a freelancer as much work as I could possibly take. And when that sort of assurance came my way, and the backup from my partner, who were a social worker in Rotherham, who earned a decent salary, said, look, if you don't take this opportunity now, you'll probably regret it in a couple of years. So I decided to step away.
So what happened in that moment? Let me just take you back a minute, because I find this really, really interesting, because everybody that starts their own business has that moment, don't they?
They do, yeah.
You had it from doing the job, doing a little bit subcontract as well, and then you had that sort of decision-making process to go, is now the right time? Somebody once referred to it as an entrepreneurial seizure, which is that moment when something happens up here, and it couldn't be a fuck it moment, let's do it. Was it more calculated for you because of this other opportunity, or was it?
No, to be honest, John, to phrase it exactly as you've just did it, with that fuck it moment, to me, mate, it were, because don't get me wrong, that fuck it moment came once I'd got assurance that sufficient work were there and that I'd got the backing of my partner, because at that time my daughter had just been born.
Were you prepared to fail?
100%.
Right.
100%. And the reason that I was prepared to fail is because I've got a large skill set that is going to be in high demand. No matter whatever happens to me, no matter if my business was to crash in the next few years, which I really can't see, but anything
you had that
can
self-assurance, didn't you?
Yeah, because I know that no matter whatever happens, the worst case scenario, I can go back and drive a machine and earn a good living. I can go back and be an health and safety manager for pretty much any company around here that know me. I work with a lot of the construction companies. I would not be out of work. So like I said, a worst case scenario, no matter what stage I ever get to in my career, no matter where my business flies to, I know that I can always go back and provide for my family. And once I'd got that and I'd got that assurance that there's work there, I just thought, you know what, fuck it, because I don't want to be sitting in 2 years still earning richer people than me, more money than they can ever spend in their life, and me just being all right.
You did 10 years, 14 years in the military, 10 years in the military?
10 years.
10 years in the military. What did that teach you that you're actively using now when running your business?
It gave me a work ethic that I think is unparalleled.
You were a rebel, but
no, I were 100%.
Giving you some...
There's, just to answer that question properly, I'd have to just give you a brief intro into my background. I told you before when I met you before, John, that I went to Upper Thorpe School because I lived on Kelvin Flats. I got kicked out of Upper Thorpe School, which were a middle school, so I shouldn't have left. I should have gone into Myers Grove at second year, but I didn't because I got oofed from Upper Thorpe. Went to Myers Grove at first year, a year in front of my friends. I didn't even get to the point where my friends got to school because I got kicked out of there after 7 months. I had 12 and a bit months off before I joined Chaucer School 2 weeks before end of second year, and I didn't get to fourth year. I didn't get to fourth year because I got kicked out 2 weeks before end of third year, and that was my schooling career done. Absolutely nothing. I'd always wanted to join military, and when I did eventually get into the military, what it did teach me was, one, you were an absolute tit in your younger life, 100%. I did everything my way, regardless of what anybody else thought. So what the military installed in me was, one, a sense of purpose, realistically, as I belonged in the military. The people that I worked with, the job that I did, and I absolutely loved it. But I was a rebel. I still, being the kid that I was, and the kid that I'd always been, that followed me. You can be doing the thing that you love and still not want to be told what to do and when to do it and when to shave and when to eat and when all these sorts of things.
And did you eventually adhere to that?
100%. Yeah. Well, regardless.
No choice, really.
Yeah. Well, regardless of how much you whinge about it, which is the rebel bit, regardless of how much you whinge about it, it had to be done, and that was just it. But obviously, you become the rebel. You get known for. I mean, don't get me wrong. I was well respected and well liked in Army, particularly because I was a rugby player. But there's always that niggle in the hierarchy's mind that I've got a bigger gob than what I should have had.
Yeah.
But what it really did install in me was a massive sense of pride, a massive work ethic, which I think 90% of people, if not 95% of people that come out of military will have a stronger work ethic than anybody I've ever met.
See, that's one thing that really comes across with you. The people that listen to the intro of this podcast, where we talk about, is business being down, is it luck? Is it sometimes about, because every story that I hear, it's always that I met this person at this time, and you even said the words, an opportunity presented itself to me, right? So it's that, is it luck? Or is it hard work? Because lots of people don't go into business because they don't back themselves. And I think you're a testament to...
I think there's a strong, very, very strong combination between a couple of factors there. One, luck. Anybody who's got good business has got a bit of luck behind them. Yeah. Or that could very easily be ascertained as to... It's not necessarily luck, but it's the ability to be able to see opportunities as they arise, or from a conversation, or from something that you've observed in another business, be able to take something of advantage to yourself.
Yeah.
That then may come across as luck. But I think it's having the courage to identify those opportunities that may come across as luck.
Yeah.
And obviously being able to apply yourself and take those risks when them opportunities do present themselves. So I do think it's a bit of a combination of, yes, luck, to a sound, keen and observational, ability, but also having that bit of risk-taking element to you. Because if you're not willing to take risks and fail, then you're not gonna progress. But I've failed many times. But what I've also got is an exceptional memory and an opportunity to learn from every mistake that I've ever made, and try to apply myself in a different approach and go forward at a different angle.
And I think it's important for everybody listening, which is, if you're going to run a business, you're going to fail. It might be the smallest thing, but learning from those things is so bloody important. So you don't repeat, rinse, repeat, because if you do that, you're going to fail. Is the people that you'd say that you'd learn from, whether that's from, going back to your time on Kelvin Flats, or your time in the military, or your time that you had with Ron Hulls?
There's to be honest, there's loads. I was telling you earlier on about the opportunity up at Hargreaves Training on Manor with a guy there that was the regional manager that was heavily recruiting from. Well, he at that time was a massive mentor to me. Not so much because because he was regional manager, he weren't my direct line manager. We had an operations manager in between, but because I knew him from the military, obviously we lended ourselves to. But he was at that time by far and away the best manager that I'd ever worked with. I didn't work with him.
What was it about him that was?
His people skills, his opportunity. People wanted to work for him because of his people skills. And I'll call them a troop of employees or a group of people that are working for a common goal and working for a manager that has got who know full well that he has got or she has got their best interests at heart and will open the door to them, be approachable, communicate well with them, not talk down to them. Obviously, offer targets that have to be achieved, but help them maintain and help them achieve those targets. That's what he did. And to me, the team worked for him and ensured that the region met its goals because of him. Yeah. And funnily enough, now he works directly for me as my operations manager.
No way.
Yeah, 100%.
Incredible.
So he's, it's been full circle. He did a lot for me at the time when I was coming into instruction. But now, over the last 4 years that he's worked for me, I've had the absolute fantastic opportunity to be able to totally turn it around, and I've put a great deal of opportunities his way. I've spent quite a lot of money, quite a few thousands of pounds on upskilling him and increasing his delivery remit. He's got a really nice company car, he's got a good position, a good salary, you know, and it's been a fantastic opportunity to give back something to somebody who I believe at the time when I really needed it gave so much to me.
Quick question. And I think I'm going to be brave to ask this question. I'm glad that I think you can't reach me from where you are, so that's good. So for people that are listening, the only word that I can describe you as is a unit, an absolute unit of a man. For Game of Thrones fan, picture the mountain and you're about right.
Drop about 2 foot off.
Drop about 2 foot. I wasn't prepared to say that, but you could say that bit. Has your appearance ever, would you say, stopped you from getting opportunities? Because you could be quite intimidating to look at.
Do you know? It's a really interesting question, that, and I'm gonna say completely opposite to what you suggested. And I'll give you a couple of.
Because you're a gentle giant, aren't you? You're a gentle giant.
Yeah, but I've always prided myself on being approachable, and that's not through trying. That's just because I like to talk to people. I like to be friendly. I'll help anybody wherever I possibly can. If they ask me for my help, my door's open to anybody at all. But what I used to find when I first got into doing freelancing, and I used to train for I used to be just myself going into bigger training providers and delivering their courses on their behalf. And I was teaching like site managers courses, site managers health and safety courses, where the attendees on the course could be managing directors of their own business or operations directors, you know, people in senior managerial roles. And it used to be the case, and I used to find it quite funny is at times that sometimes when you get a lot of people in managerial positions, they're keen, they want to learn, and they're then generally there early. And they'd all be sat around the table sometimes, and I'd turn up and I'd have an hoodie on, my gym hoodie, because I'd have come from gym that morning, and I'd walk into the front of the classroom, and I've got tattoos on my hands and tattoos on my neck, and I'd walk through to the front, and you could see some of them all sat there in suits as students, you know, because and they'd be looking at me thinking, well, what's he doing here? Why is he on this course? And then when I got to the front and start setting my laptop up, you could just feel eyes burning in the back of my head, like, who's this? Why is he setting? Who's he think he's stuck? And then when I turn around and I talk to him, some of them I might have them only 2 days, some of them I might have them a full week, or some of them they'd be there for 5 weeks, 1 day a week for 5 weeks. And I have, as the years have progressed, so many of those companies have come, not to the company that I went to, that I was training for, they've come to me. Not because that initial looking at me, yes, you're right, sometimes that appearance, but as soon as I start talking, and when I start to open myself up and they get to know Kieron and not just stereotype me from my visual appearance, because I'm an open person, and because I've got, as an instructor with many years experience from military and civil, I ensure that I know my subject matter. So I don't read off of PowerPoints. I can talk about anything that I've got subject matter knowledge in until I'm blue in the face. And that level of confidence, the way I project myself, because I'm open and you know, and I can relate to people from operative level through to directorship level, because I've gone every single step of the way myself. It really seems to have lent itself to me. So that initial appearance, it generally tends to shock people. But then that leads to much better business opportunities for me, because once they've got past that, they find it fucking unbelievable. And
there's another side to that, isn't there? Which is there's so many people now that think they have to look a certain way to run a business, and will fall into that. Oh, I best be suited and booted and wear a tie, and you end up turning into something that you don't really want to be. You know?
I refuse to that. I refuse to do that, and I honestly think that my complete and utter refusal to do what's just been mentioned there, John, has helped me, because when
you can just be you, can't you, as well?
And that's what people buy into. I've found people have bought into my company initially because they bought into me. And I'll turn up for meetings now, I'm sat here with a t-shirt on. Yeah, it's company logo on, but this is what I'm comfortable in.
Yeah.
Whether it's a polo, I never wear shirt and tie, because a lot of people in construction industry, regardless of where in the company they are, they see that shirt and tie as a barrier between you and them. They see that as somebody in an authoritative position. And that's not the way I want to project myself. That's not me trying to be anything that's Kieron Honeyman, turning up to deliver Kieron Honeyman. And if you want to buy into what I'm selling, buy into it, but I promise you're going to get Kieron, you're going to get my business, and everybody that works for me follows that ethos, because if they don't get to come out and wear my company logos or drive my vehicles. It's that simple. And I often find that what you were saying there is that it might be that initial glance that think, fucking hell, you know what? And then once the conversation starts flowing,
later,
then instantly they're like, it's like a bit of a relief, or it's a bit of shock that they initially had. tends to then lead on to a better relationship than I'd have probably had had I just, been an average sort of chap.
So people in plant training will know who you are. They'll know who KH Plant Training is. So you've been going for 6 years now. What's next for you?
We are moving in, we're now trying to look at going in, because everything that we do predominantly, or everything that we do at the moment directly through KH Plant Training is commercial.
Yeah.
And I think with some of the opportunities that are coming out with government funded training at the moment, we're going to look to move into some element of government funded training. But I want to ensure that we keep our commercial identity.
Yeah.
Because I'm very, very aware of the way in which government funding works on its peaks and troughs.
Yeah.
And a lot of organisations that deliver training solely rely on that government funding, which to me, it can clash. You can be riding a high for 6 months, and then all of a sudden you hit a low when the government funding's been ceased or drawn back, and you've got no commercial backbone to sit on. So that's one element of progression that we're going to move into, and we're having a Zoom meeting with a consortium that's about to be put together, where about 12 training providers from different areas of industry are all going to start working under a consortium with a development company that basically identify and tender for funding. But the idea of this new consortium is that the consortium will feed into each other, and the different businesses with the different training and delivery remits from different sectors are able to assist and help other organisations within the consortium to better provide opportunity for funding to be grabbed within the consortium. And yes, obviously we're going to pay a premium to get into that consortium, but I just think moving forward, it's a really good way to network, to expand our client base, and obviously potentially feed into other organisations from different sectors. Because yes, we deliver construction training, but a lot of the companies that we work with have other areas or other organisations, or they are holding companies for smaller companies that deliver. And if we can take their business and provide it to people within our consortium, it's going to lend to further reciprocal opportunities coming back our way. So that's one of the things that we're looking at. And we are prudentially, and I did mention to you last time we spoke about some of the new accreditations that we're moving into. So the next big one that we're going to move on to is NEBOSH. They've only just opened the door to new training partners now, due to obviously the pandemic being what it were, and NEBOSH is a world-renowned health and safety organisation. They basically shut shop, not for delivery of training courses for the training providers that were already in them, but for taking new partners on.
And you can understand that as well.
Of course you can, I mean, they've got to keep up the major worldwide appearance of working in terms of health and safety. So obviously, really tightening the belt when it came to the pandemic, and the way in which they handled health and safety business is important. But the doors are now open again now. So we're going to move forward into that accreditation over the next month, with a view then to approaching the MOD to become one of the MOD supply chain for the delivery of training, and then being able to fund into the resettlement. I told you about resettlement. Obviously, a lot of everybody who comes out of the military, once they've served a certain period of time, is eligible for that resettlement. And my company wants to be on the forefront, and we want to be on that search training provider location, so that when a company or a person is leaving and they're looking for a particular qualification, and they can use their LCAS funding or the resettlement funding that we're going to ping up, and we're going to start attending those resettlement networking events and things like that as well. So,
because one thing that you talk really passionately about is supporting veterans, right? Supporting people that come out of the military. It must be really tough that from being in that routine for you for 10 years. And then nothing. Was it a tough transition for you to transition back? Because you said it was a tough transition when you went, but then you had 10 years of that.
You become, and obviously 10 years in terms of military service isn't a very long time. As Dave, who works with me, did 25. You do, and even after 10 years, I've always...
Did you become a little bit robotic?
You become institutionalised, you become regimented. And I've always been like that anyway. So... as I say, you do very quickly become institutionalised. Your life is routine. I still maintain that now, but not so much on a professional level now, because my day-to-day routine with KH Plant Training over the last so many years, yes, I've got to get up every day. Yes, I've got to do my job, but my job is so flexible, particularly as a director at company. I'm not in front of an audience every single day. I'm planning who's going in front of audiences. I'm going out to meetings, I'm attending meetings. I'm also still maintaining quite a wide delivery remit myself. Yesterday I was testing. So Thursday.
So did you find it difficult? Or did you plan for it?
No, I didn't plan for it, and I didn't really find it difficult because I think I've always...
Because you hear horror stories, don't you?
Yeah, of course
There's
you do.
a lot
yeah.
of horror stories.
Oh, there is. I think the only thing that's helped me is that my missus says I've got no emotions, or I've got no... little things don't bother me. I am extremely flexible.
Yeah.
No matter whatever comes to me whatever comes in front of me in a day-to-day basis, I can generally deal with. The big things don't bother me. It's when she leaves butter knife on side that it drives me insane, and I have to have a 30-minute rant.
That'll be the military.
Yeah, well, it is. But I still maintain my regimented day-to-day routine.
Yeah.
My alarm goes off at 4:30 every morning.
I bet you don't have 2 alarms, do you? You bet you got 1 alarm. That
One
gets you
alarm.
up. Is that it?
Yeah, that's it. That's all
yeah,
I
I knew
do.
it would be.
Get myself up in the morning, most of the time I do a bit of cardio, then I'll go into the kitchen and I'll prepare my food for the day, and then I'll go out to whatever my working day consists of.
So
now,
just for people that might have missed that, hold on a minute. You get up at 4:30.
Yeah,
4:30 a.m.
Every day,
Okay.
yeah. I used to get up at 4:20 when I was competing for bodybuilding shows, but I've given myself an extra 10 minutes. It makes all difference in the world, doesn't it? But yeah, I mean, so that to me is regimented. Though once I've left the home and I go out to my working day, that may be different every day. What I've got planned might not happen whatsoever because of certain circumstances. It's an ever-changing environment. So the day-to-day working life, once I've left my house, is completely flexible. I might have something planned in and generally gets done, but then the regimented element kicks back in when I've finished my work and I go straight to the gym and I train, and then I go home and I do whatever I'm doing there. But so it's still extremely regimented, but with a massive element of flexibility throughout the working day in any case. And if you're not flexible, you're not going to be able to bend and move with what industry and what your clients are requiring. So the ability to be flexible, and my missus says I'm not emotionally connected to things. I am, but it's emotionally connected to business, and whatever that needs to be, done at that particular time, I can just bend and flex myself to it.
Good. So I always ask this question to people. So take yourself back to 2015. Knowing what you know now, would you do anything different?
No.
Even the downs.
No,
do you think you're a big believer that you got to go through them?
We go through my company, and we go through downs all the time. Not so much in terms of profit turnover, but when you think I run a training provider. As a training provider, I've got a few employees. There's 9 of us now. We've got multiple. As an example, this week, right? We've got a telehandler course running with one of my instructors. There's 3 delegates on it. I've got an appointed person course, which is planners of lifting operations. That's got 6 people on it. We've got a dump truck course with 4 people on it. We've got an excavator course with so many people on it. All these instructors have got to be planned. They've got to be allocated. What we generally find is the downs nowadays is that the planning element, or rather the administrative element, to get those bums on seats. Yeah. And once those bums are on seats, things actually not being right. We had a guy turn up on Monday for a telehandler course that was full, and because it was through a broker, they'd sold him one of our courses and not communicated it to us. Right, yeah. So this poor lad, he'd been booked on for 13th. The other company, the broker, had told him that he couldn't attend for whatever reason. They told him he could attend with us yesterday. We got no record. There was nothing. He just turned up. This poor lad had quit a job as well to come on the course. He travelled from Hull yesterday. So the downs for me yesterday were spending 2 hours sorting that lad out, trying to do my best for him so that we could get him back on a later date, even though he'd already paid for this date, but not to us. And it's continual elements like that.
And that'll happen all the time.
Yeah, it is, but they're our small lows now. And because we're so busy, there's never so much of a lulling battle in terms of keeping courses running. It's keeping on top of the course prerequisites for each delegate, so that when they turn up on the day, things can hit the ground running and away we go. So to me now, the lows are that. It's ensuring that we are able to deal with those little fuck-ups as they occur as best we can in order to move forward.
And one thing that really comes, and you've not said it, but I think you've communicated it, is you've got really high standards, haven't you?
Yeah, we maintain. Not only have we got a legal obligation under health and safety law to the people that come to work with us. We've got
there's
a
difference
obligation.
Between
we've got a moral obligation, but I ensure that when people come to end of the day, when anybody comes to my company, regardless of which trainer's delivering training, regardless of which tester's doing this or which assessor's doing whatever it is, when they go away, the name that is on the tip of their tongue is KH Plant Training, and KH is Kieron Honeyman. Yeah. So to me, everybody who comes through takes my name away with them. Now, they might be a sole person who's come in and paid for themselves to come and do an excavator course, and they'll go away and they'll tell their friends. It might be that it's a national company that have sent guys to deliver to us, and national companies are very, very big on quality assurance, and they will request feedback from their delegates on return. When they go back to their companies, I want them to say, KH plant training is shit up. We went there, we were driving good machines that were well maintained. The facilities were suitable, everything were made available to us. The administrative element was bang on. You know, the tutors treat as well. The tutors delivered a high standard of qualification. And then what I'm extremely keen on is when we get from the training element to the testing element, that them guys, when they've gone away, know that they've fucking earned the qualification they've got. Right. And it's not just being a tick pass. I won't wash that. When you come to me, you go, and a guy said it to me the other day, when in fact, he did an excavator course. He said, when we've done training courses before, we've had a little bit of training, bit of knowledge. It's been a tick box. Yeah, we've learned a bit. He says, but I feel like I've actually fucking had to work my socks off to get it. Yeah. Now, that's what I want when people go away, not for any other reason that one, it ensures that we've done a good job, that industry safety requirements are going to be met. We've got decent operators going out into industry, but that fucking qualification has got value to the person that's achieved it. There's no good this signing people off because it just devaluates what they've just spent 2 weeks doing. Completely it devaluates it if we're not going to assess to the end game.
Completely agree with that. And the final thing, last question. There'll be lots of people listening to this that are on the cusp of going, should I, shouldn't I? For people that are thinking about setting up their own business, if there was just one bit of advice that you could give them, or, you know, from your experience of not just running KH Plant for the last sort of 6 years or so, but also your experience that you've had in life, what piece of advice would you give someone?
Whatever product it is or whatever services it is that you're going to provide, one, ensure that you fully understand your own product. Don't try to sell something that you've not got a sound experience and subject matter knowledge in, whatever that may be. Yeah. And then secondly, just fucking believe in yourself. Project yourself to whomever it is that you're going to see and be yourself. Believe in what you've got. And if you are believing yourself in what you've got and you're able to project that confidently, people will buy into you. It's, you know, you're selling yourself. It's a brand, it's a logo, but it's you that's ultimately going to be the doom or the success of your own, you know, of your own future. So just fucking believe in yourself.
Thanks again for coming in, buddy. Really appreciate that. Cheers, bro.